More 7 Caillou action. We have exclamation mark series number 7. Remove words from the sentence if it contains one exclamation mark. So remove those words. Note if they contain exactly one and only one exclamation mark. Words are separated by a single space. They'll take care of that for us without leading and trailing spaces. So let's go over the example so we understand. Remove called on the input HI exclamation mark returns nothing because there is exactly one exclamation mark in that word. Similarly, example 2 returns nothing because it has two words, both the same as the first example, and neither of those should pass. Same thing with example 3. They just repeated it a third time. That input is bad, so to speak, here. Gets filtered out. So you can string it 100 times and you're going to get nothing. Notice though in example 4 we do get the output high because the very first word does not contain an exclamation mark. The others do. Example 5 returns nothing, but note the difference that in word 2 you had a leading exclamation mark, but it's still exactly one. It doesn't matter where the exclamation mark occurs. If there is one, don't pass it, block it. So example 6, notice you get high double exclamation mark because there's two. Two's fine. You can't have exactly one. And then in the final example, you'll see this high passes because it has two exclamation marks. So I think that's pretty clear. They did a good job with the examples showing what should pass and what shouldn't. So I don't know if in the attempt they're going to use words besides high, but it doesn't really matter. The solution's going to be the same. We don't care about the high, we care about the number of the exclamation marks within any given word. So this is your turn. Pause the video, give an honest attempt, come on back and we'll solve it together and share solutions. So to start, first thing I want to do is we're going to have this input string that can contain multiple words, right? This string S. I'll call mine str. I like that name a little bit better. And so in a very recent challenge, we saw that you can call string has a split method, right? Go ahead and look that up if you want. And if you don't provide an argument, it's going to split by default by the space character. That's just so common that words are spaced that way. It's nice they built it in by default. You get that behavior. And that works for us here, so we'll just leave it like that. But you can imagine after this, well, we can look at string split. So we're going to use string split. It comes with a system namespace. We'll bring that in if we don't have it yet. And we'll note what it returns. Remember, these doc pages always have the return types. So it's going to give us a string array, right? So that's good. We got to keep track of what we're dealing with at any given time. We're going to get a string array then. So remember, what I have highlighted right now is going to return a string array. And we know that arrays are enumerable, so we can use some link methods to filter the output, right? And so hopefully when I said filter, that set off an alarm in your head and you thought of the link method where. It filters a sequence of values based on a predicate. And we're going to give it a lambda function to filter in the way that we want it to, right? And you can click on these and go look for, we don't need the elements index, so you could look at this one and look at an example if you need to refresh yourself. Why not? We're here, right? Fruits where, and then you use a lambda function. Remember, the first part's the argument name. Then this arrow denotes that you're going into the method body now, right? Lambda is just an anonymous function, a function that doesn't have a name. It's a throwaway function, so we just kind of define the whole thing right in place here. They're usually very short, so it's not a problem to do that. So let's do that. Instead of fruit, though, we're dealing with words, and we want to know if they have exclamation marks in them. So let's tailor that to our needs. So we have a string array, right? We said that. We can use these methods, but provided we bring in, remember, you probably remember by now, but system link, that's the namespace this is found in. So before we even get yelled at, I'm going to bring in system link. All right, now where? We've got to give it a lambda that specifies our condition. And let's use good naming of variables here, right? So we have a string array right now, and I'm going to think of each of my entries or elements in that array as a word. So I'll just say word, right? That's my parameter name that's going to represent each element in that string array. We'll use the lambda arrow there, and then we'll write the body, what should happen. And so how do we want to filter? Well, we saw it was when a word contains one and only one exclamation mark. Or I should say, remember the filter that you put in here is going to determine what passes. So we want to say that the word does not contain exactly one exclamation mark. So how can we do that? Well, if you'd like to look at more link methods, you can do that. But since we're in the solution, I'll show you. You have this enumerable count. And so we've seen this in a simple sense where if you look at this first one, it just returns the number of elements in a sequence, which is great. You know, like if you call string length, it'll tell you how many characters are in the string. And so if you just need the total number, you can use that. But you optionally have this one where you can pass, again, a lambda function in here to count only the elements that meet your criteria. And that's very powerful. Let's see, you can look at the example here if you'd like. Notice they have a count here. In their case, they're checking for vaccination. But yeah, we'll leverage that too. We're going to use count that way. Make another. So we're going to have a lambda within a lambda. Hopefully that isn't too mind-blowing, right? So this is where we'll enter our lambda within a lambda, if you will. And remember, at this point, we're dealing with a single word, right? A string word. And so what I like to think of each element in a word is a character, right? A char. We know that strings are actually collections of chars. So I'm just going to name my variable ch, but again, you can name yours whatever you like here. And so we're going to examine each letter to check if it is an exclamation mark or not. We want to, in other words, we want to count the number of occurrences of exclamation marks in the word. So let's say ch is equal to exclamation mark. And notice I use the single quotes, right? When you're dealing with chars, characters, you use single quotes. You don't use the double quotes. That's for a string, right? Don't do that. You're going to get errors. Okay, great. So we know that this bit here will tell us that for any given word in that original string array, it's going to return a number representing how many exclamation marks are in it. And so what we want to do with, remember that everything that I have highlighted is going to resolve to a numerical integer value. And I just want to make sure that that is not equal to 1, right? Anything other than 1. It could have 100, it could have 0, 7, but just not 1, right? That's the condition that we want to pass, right? We want to say that it's not equal to just 1. So that looks good. Let's make sure we have all of our closing parentheses here. See how CodeWars highlights when you put your cursor next to there, you can see where the opening parenthesis is, and you can check here. Good, we look closed there. And was there, I think we're closed up there. All right, so back to where. Let's go to the returns. Notice where is going to return in an IEnumerable of t, but we know we're dealing with strings, so it's going to be an IEnumerable of string. So the question is then, we have this collection, this IEnumerable of strings. How do we make it into just a single string to match our return type, right? That's the contract. We think of methods as contracts. It's got to return a string. It can't return an IEnumerable of string and just, like, hey, you figure it out. That's not how computers work. You have to return exactly the type here. So maybe if you can think back to previous challenges, a way where when you have a collection of strings and you want to combine them, you could use a technique like that. And so I'll sort of build that in place here. What we have is this string join method that'll do that. Concatenates the elements of a specified array or the members of a collection using the specified separator between each element or member. So good. Again, this is the power of the overloads. We oftentimes would use these really basic ones in the early challenges, but look at, you've got other types, right? We can pass in an enumerable of string here, and we can tell it how to join. We know in our case that the final string is just separating words by individual spaces, just like you would write text, you know. So let's use that overload. Feel free to look through the documentation if you'd like. Let's see, string join there, it's got a space, and then the prime numbers. So I will use this sort of single space there for string join as well. Let's try that. We'll say string join, and then everything else, and we'll close it into one big string join. So that'll take care of that final enumerable of type string and sort of construct an individual string out of all of those elements, which is what we need to do. So I'll go ahead and hit the test. Green looking good. Attempt looking good. Clear for submission. So yeah, if you wanted to break that out, if there's too much chaining going on here, you know, feel free to break these out into separate statements. You know, string split. You could make a separate variable, right? Like string array split words equals that, right? And you can operate on these step by step if you want, just until you see it, you know, and then if you like at the end, you can combine it all together. I think this is readable, clear enough. So I'll probably submit mine that way. But yeah, maybe that was confusing. It's good though. You got to be able to kind of chain things together like that, or at least be able to understand it, because other people are going to be doing that. So I will go ahead and submit and collect my points. And then, yeah, some other things. They string join, but they did it a little bit differently. They have a different where collection there. So they were splitting it by exclamation mark, and said you couldn't have basically more than two pieces, which would imply that there was just one exclamation mark. This seems reasonable. I mean, obviously they should be right if they made it here. So that looks more like what we did. Yeah, pretty similar there. Yeah, go through those as you like. Otherwise, drop a comment. Let me know how you got to the answer. Hit me up with questions, comments. I appreciate the likes and subs. And I will see you in another video. Thank you for watching.